into a fight recently. You know, it was a guy, he was a little drunk. He had a fedora on. And he's talking to the sales girl, and he's like, what do you think I should wear with this? And I said, a rope. I don't care what gender you are. Is there a worse item in the house than your mother's underpants? I wouldn't touch my mother's underpants if she was hanging off a bridge by her underpants. I'd probably just blow her a kiss and then step on her fucking fingers. Like, I don't want a girl to, like, look at me with puppy love. Like, I want a girl to look at my dick and go, ugh, I wish it was black, and then blow a snot rocket on it. I wouldn't have worn a condom if I looked into her pussy and saw Magic Johnson waving up at
me. Jim Norton, everybody. Let's hear it one more time. Jim, thanks for being here, man.
Thank you. I'm surprised you guys showed that clip. I'm so happy. The dirty part. I didn't think you would show that. That's great.
I was distracting you in the green room so you couldn't see on the television there was a warning about language.
Oh, there was. Okay, cool.
I believe so. That's what someone told me.
Oh, good.
I didn't notice that, though.
Well, thank you.
Jim, so Mouthful of Shame. What number special is this for you? At what point, how many specials have you done?
5 1-hours, and I think 1 half-hour, and then 1 series hosting young stand-ups and bringing them out. So I guess it's number 6.
Is it basically like a yearly thing for you at this point as well? Are you try to do a special a year?
Yeah, I try to, because as you get older, you get more desperate. And I'm like, I got to start pumping out material. Since I have no wife or children or anything to be remembered by, I'm like, I might as well just curse on camera.
Do you have that thing where if you don't do a special, you have trouble letting go of jokes? Like if it doesn't end up in a special or on an album somewhere, you sort of hold on to this joke as long as possible?
Yeah, I'll put it down and sometimes pick it up. Some things you just have to let go. Like, but normally, like when I shot this, the night I shot it in New York, done. I will never do any of those jokes again. I put it down, went into the Comedy Cellar the next night, and just started over and started bombing. That's the best part.
You go to the Comedy Cellar the next night. Do you have anything written down that you're going to do, or do you just start sort of riffing and see what comes out?
Both. You have a couple of ideas, or maybe one joke that didn't make it into the special or that you forgot, because I have a very bad memory. When you do drugs as a teenager, it does affect you later in life, and my memory sucks.
Mine too.
Yeah, it's funny. They were talking about, like, Don Rickles passed away, and we interviewed Robert Klein, a legendary comic, if you don't know.
He's here tomorrow.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
He's one of my heroes. And he was talking about as people get old and dementia and they get crazy, and, like, the act is the last thing to go. Like, when you're a comedian, you can remember nothing, but you will remember your act, and then once that goes, you're finished. So I figure I still at least can remember my act.
It's so interesting hearing you talk about bombing at the Comedy Cellar, because... you do it? No. You talk about Caitlyn Jenner in this, right?
I do.
And I saw you at the Comedy Cellar, I would say a year ago maybe, before this special came out, and it was right around the time that Caitlyn Jenner was really big news. Maybe that was longer than a year ago.
About 2 years when the first interview was done, yeah.
And I feel like you were starting new material there, because I remember when I saw you do it, I have particular opinions about the transgender community, and I remember at the time being like, I don't know about this stuff. And then here, it's really funny.
Yeah.
So it's clear that you had sort of built this material and honed it over time.
Sure.
When I first saw you, you were just kind of getting it out.
Yeah, you start working through it. It's like anything else. Like most of the Caitlyn jokes, I didn't do in the special because they felt dated. Like, I talked about trans issues, but I didn't, the Caitlyn stuff, I think I did like one joke about Caitlyn. I made fun of her. But I support trans people, and that was kind of like where I was going to anyway. But the specific thing about Caitlyn just felt too dated.
Because we're sort of done.
Just because it was all specific on the interview with Diane Sawyer, and stuff like that. You had to remember, oh yeah, she did say that, and it wasn't necessary to have it in.
But the joke about her show being canceled is still very funny.
Thank you. Yes, and yeah,
very, very funny.
I did, and I believe me, I talked about having sex with her at one point. I wouldn't now because she's too old. But that's the only reason I wouldn't. I'm not homophobic. I'm an ageist.
So let's talk about the big news when it comes to this special. This special opens with Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
Slapping your bare ass.
Yeah.
Spanking you on camera.
Yeah.
As Robert De Niro spanked this man's bare ass on camera.
Yeah.
How the hell did that happen?
He begged to do it. He loved my ass. I had to beg. I had to let him tell him to stop. No.
How does Robert De Niro beg? I've never. Please. Please.
Jim, it's nice. No. I had helped him in this movie called The Comedian, and I had just come on very, very late, and they asked me to help consult a couple of moments that they did a reshoot for. So I spent some time with him, and we got along great, and he's just, because I was talking stand-up comedy, I was comfortable. Any other subject, I would have talked to De Niro the way anybody else talks to him, which is just kind of like, yeah, okay. It's frightening because of who he is. But because I was talking about a subject I'm comfortable with, I was able just to talk to him like I'm talking to you. So I think that he kind of liked me. So when it was over and I asked him if he would do this, I got a yes back relatively quickly. But the spanking part I kept out of the script because I was afraid that he would get creeped out if he saw that. So I bought a hair.
One thing to read that, it's another thing to sort of be told or asked to do that while you're already having fun and in the middle of a shoot.
Exactly. He was in the Deer Hunter. I can't send him a script that says in parentheses, Jim is bare ass over your knee. That's just not something I'm comfortable doing. So I sent him the script and he okayed it, and I brought a hairbrush that day. I told my director, bring a brush in case he doesn't want to touch my actual ass. But I told him, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to ask you to spank me. So I just dropped it in there. Like, we were talking about something, and I'm like, yeah, and then you're going to slap me, because he wanted direction. So I'm like, you're going to slap me, and at one point, I got you spanking me, but I brought a brush, so you don't have to touch my ass. And he's like, oh, and he laughed, but he didn't know I really meant it. And I made him laugh, I think, before we started, because the first 3 takes were over his lap. And the first time I laid over his lap, I said, look, I apologize in advance if I come on your leg. And he laughed. So I think that relaxed him a lot. And then he did the takes, and then he finally goes, let's do one standing up. And that was the one that we actually used in the special, because it just played funnier. Him standing over me, spanking me, played funnier than the one I had written.
Who would have thought that Robert De Niro's scene note would play better than yours?
It's amazing, right? Yeah. But it was just that stupid little thing that he knew, and it worked. And in the special, I also have the opening. I have Louis C.K., and I also have Ricky Gervais. And those guys also threw in little minute directions. Ricky Gervais says really mean shit to me, but he improv'd it. He's like, I really want to insult you. And I'm like, all right. So we did some of the stuff I wrote, and then he just blasted me and said horrible shit. And I was like, that's funnier than anything I wrote. And it played very well with the audience. So these guys just have great instincts, so you kind of have to go with it.
You said this is your 5th special over the course of your career. How would you say your material has changed over the course of 5 years? Rather than it just being different things that you talk about, although some of them are similar subjects, how would you say your approach and maybe even your thoughts about these things have changed?
You become calmer and more comfortable with your thoughts. You become less dependent on people agreeing with you. And, I want people to laugh. Like, this was a really personal special. I talked about a lot of stuff. Like, I'm always, my job is to be funny, not to convince people of shit. But, I told the truth in the special. And
You've always been extremely personal, though, I feel, in your...
But more so in this one, I felt like there were certain things, like, I would always say, like, I would pretend I didn't know certain things. Then I'm like, no, I knew. Like certain sexual experiences, let's just say. But I felt very honest in this one. And my fans are harsh. Like, they tell me when I suck. They tell me when my performance is shitty, when I'm not good on stage, when my delivery isn't good. They're brutal. And in this one, they were so positive. Like, I almost didn't know how to handle the feedback I got. It was nicer than anything I've done in all of my years doing stand-up.
Where do you think that comes from with your fans, or how do you sort of get those fans? Do you think it comes from being on radio?
Yeah, radio is a soap opera. Like, I've been on radio for many, many years, and when you do radio, people get to know you, and they get to know who you are, and they, so they love you and they hate you harshly. They're willing to back you through anything, but they're also willing to crucify you if they feel you're being fake or fraudulent, which, every performer has been fake and full of shit in our careers, and boy, have I heard it. Every time I've tried it, I don't get away with it.
Can we talk about something that you did on radio? I think it was in the last couple of years where you had Nancy Grace on.
That was recently. Sorry to interrupt you. My new show is called Jim Norton and Sam Roberts on Sirius XM, and we just started together in October, and Nancy was one of our first guests.
Guest is really one way to put what you guys did. How did that happen? You have her on, and I think you were incredible with her, but she had no idea that this was coming? You guys didn't talk to her about what you thought of her work beforehand?
No, we don't. I never pre-screen a guest. I don't like Nancy Grace. I always thought that she kind of capitalized on dead kids, which I think is creepy and gross, because she would do things like hashtag tot mom. That type of stuff is just predatory and disgusting. Whereas John Walsh from America's Most Wanted makes a great living, and I feel like he really is a victim's advocate. I always kind of felt like she was a bit predatory. So I had tweeted her. Nancy Grace blocked me. She's the only celebrity to ever block me.
She blocked you?
Yes, because I just kept blasting her and complimenting her on all the dead kids and how happy she must be that she's making a living off. I was really...
Did she block you before the interview?
Oh, yeah. But then she came on the show, and I felt like a liar. I wasn't going to insult her on the show, because she came on our show. She was plugging a book. I would have helped promote her book. But I'm also a little weasel if I don't go, look, I've been kind of shitty publicly, So I had to say, look, I've been critical of you. I haven't liked a lot of what you've done. But I didn't, if you watch the video, I didn't yell at her. But I felt, that in the spirit of honesty, I had to say it. And she could have just, I think she knew, though, because she kind of was like I said something. She's like, oh, he speaks. Like, immediately I knew, oh, all right, she's a combative little thing, isn't she? But she walked off our show. And nobody cursed at her. Nobody blasted her and screamed at her. My partner, Sam's a big wrestling fan. And he talked to her about the wrestling thing that she did, which upset a lot of people. They thought that she kind of, I guess, ambushed wrestlers or whatever she did.
What was the wrestling thing that she did?
I don't know. I think that she was stating facts about wrestler deaths that were deemed to be too all-encompassing. I don't remember, but it was something that pissed off WWE and wrestlers. And Sam, who is a little wrestler fanboy, was not happy at all, and he let her know it. Me with the dead kids and Sam with the wrestlers, she didn't stand a chance. So she stood up, and she's like, I'm leaving. And that's actually a really good Nancy Grace impression. And she walked out. And
had you ever had that before? Had you ever had a guest walk out on you?
Yeah, I mean, I had a big argument with Governor Jesse Ventura many years ago over 9/11 conspiracy. I don't believe there was a conspiracy. Jesse did. And we kind of got nasty with each other, and it's one of those things where I wish it didn't happen. I still don't believe there was a conspiracy, but I wish that we had had a more pleasant chat, because I don't...
It's a hard thing to have a pleasant chat about.
No, you're right, it is. People get very mad. If you're talking about race, or if you're talking about 9/11, if you're talking about certain issues, abortion, there's no way to disagree where people go like, oh, I hear what you're saying. Okay, good. We get too angry too fast. So it became a very heated discussion, and... I'm not angry at him anymore, and I don't know if he is or not. I don't think he is. But that was the last time. But I thought he was actually going to throw me through a window, because I'm a little guy, and when I'm on the air, I fought with Chris Jericho too, who actually became a very close friend after the. But when I'm on the air, if someone is arguing with me, I'm very argumentative back. But I forget, like, this guy could literally pick me up and throw me through a window. There was one point where Jesse was standing there, and I thought that he was going to attack me. But like, you know how it is when you're in it, you're in it. You ever see The Wire when Slim Charles says that to Avon? When you're in it, you're in it. That's kind of where I was. And I'm like, well, if I'm gonna get beat up, I'm gonna get fucking beat up.
What was Ventura saying while like leaning over you? Was he like, and the pillars melted? You can see the way they're built.
Yeah, but
absurdity of that fake conspiracy is so funny to have someone screaming at you about.
Well, when you watch the video, it looks like I'm being a dick to him, because the video, Opie, who I was working with at the time, was only taping a little bit at a time because he didn't have that much space left on his little flip cam. But if you listen to the audio, you can see that Jesse called me an asshole. And then everything you say to me, I have to say back to you. I'm a big mouth. That's what I do for a living. That's why I fucking talk about my dick in front of strangers. So when he would say something like, oh, you're an asshole, I'd go, oh, you're an asshole, which was not a smart tactic, but that was what I was doing. And then when he's leaving, he walked out and he patted me really hard. And like, again, he wasn't trying to hurt me. I'm not crying wolf. But the only...
Establishing an alpha dominance.
Alpha dominance, and I can't match that at all. But again, I have a big mouth. So I was either going to pat Jesse the body, which I didn't want to touch him, because again, that's a physical...
Your hand and twist, yeah.
Yeah, I can't. So I said something about his hairdo, which I said he looked like Riff Raff from the Rocky Horror Show, and he was really upset about that. But I'm like, hey, you put me in a corner, bucko. Again, I never would have insulted him personally like that if he didn't touch me first. But again, it was a stupid radio argument, and it got a lot of heat. And in hindsight, it's just silly.
Now, in all of your specials, or at least in a number of them, you've always been very open about your sexual trysts with women in the transgender community.
Sure.
But how have you found that your material or the way that you talk about it has changed since the transgender community has gained such a bigger voice?
Well, it's just more comfortable whenever you're talking about something sexual, because we're built around shame sexually, and like everyone's greatest fear is that people are going to know what you're like sexually. And even when you're not hurting people, you're not doing anything wrong, it's still this great shame that surrounds sex and the subject of it.
You just immediately made me think, like, is that a fear? What if people found out about me sexually?
But
I think I'm okay.
But in a way, it is though. Like our text messages. Picture, you know what I mean? Your private sexual thoughts or things you've said. That's why I always feel bad for people during these fappenings and stuff like that. And I feel terrible guilt after masturbating. I'm kidding. I shouldn't have done that as I'm duck walking to the bathroom. But I talk about the...
Go away, celeb jihad. Go away.
But with the trans community, I would always joke about it, and I was open about it. But now I'm open about it, like liking trans girl, but saying like, no, I'm making jokes about my interactions because again, any sexual interactions I make jokes about. But I let people know, like, yeah, no, I really do like it. Like it's not just something I'm joking about because there was always ambiguity. Does he like it? Does he not like it? And that was part of the humor in it. Like a part of me was afraid, like, do you lose certain humor value when you're just honest? Because I'm not an activist, and I'm not a spokesperson. That's not my job. My job is to be honest about my life and hopefully be funny with it. I've said this before, but my job is not to be right. It's to be funny and to be honest. That's my job.
You're never making fun of the rights or anything that is actually affects the transgender community. You're literally just talking about your sexual experiences.
Yeah, but I also talk about like people who aren't down with it, who don't understand it. Those people are not all bigots either. Like some of them are. Some of them are homophobes and creeps and transphobic, yeah. But some people just don't know what to make of it, and it's not what they were raised with, and it's not their sexual preference. So as far as they're concerned, if you like that, you're gay. I mean, and it's like that's not necessarily true. But, I don't think that's a crazy thought to have if you've never experienced it. And you got to kind of listen to other people when they chime in, too. We've gotten into this place where everybody's just like, no, this is how I feel, and if you don't feel this way, you're something phobic. And that's just not realistic, and that doesn't help anybody.
Is there anything that is sort of any stones left unturned for you in your stand-up? Anything that you haven't talked about that you're too fearful to talk about?
Yeah, hugging and hand-holding. Those things I've never covered.
That's in your daily life.
Yeah, those are gross. No, there's no subject I won't discuss. There's no part of my life I won't, because it's why wouldn't I? Because once you say it, they can't get you with it. I'm not a predator. I don't like hurting people. I don't like victimizing people. I don't like underage. Like, there's nothing I'm scared to talk about that I enjoy. So as time goes on, you just talk about whatever experiences you're having in that moment, like in the last year or two, until from one special to the next, and you just get better at talking about it.
You say you're a really bad boyfriend, but before even getting to that, have the specials or at least your material ever gotten in the way of you getting girlfriends?
Oh, boy, have they. That Google story, it's funny. At the end of my special, I tell a story about talking to a beautiful girl on Tinder, and we were talking, and she was way out of my league, and she wrote, oh, by the way, I Googled you, and read some very interesting stuff, and I joke about, saying something nasty to her. But I recently got a message from her. It's the first time I've heard from her in 8 months. And she's like, so, I saw your special, So she knew I was making fun of her. I'm like, well, yeah. I guess that's what happens. My name is not a good one when you Google it. So, yeah, it has gotten... one girl who I was dating when one of my books came out, because she was not the girl I was talking about in my books. I told true sexual stories from like 2003, 2004. And the girl I was dating at the time... was like, people are going to think that's me. I'm like, no, they're not. And then I'm at a book release party, and somebody from Simon Schuster goes, oh, my God, are you the girl in the book? And she went to the bathroom and cried. I'm like, oh, I'm a piece of shit. So, yeah.
No, that guy from Simon & Schuster is a piece of shit. He shouldn't have said that.
It was a woman who said it to her.
That woman is a piece of shit.
She
shouldn't have said that.
She didn't mean it. It was a bad judgment, but she didn't mean it to be... She was just trying to be fun with it and make it light. She didn't know that my girlfriend and I had this discussion. But my girlfriend at the time, look, was understandably didn't want people thinking that my life was her life. It's okay. So the thing that like weeds out a lot of potential partners, people are like, hey, I don't like this guy, that he's done this and he's done that. I understand that. But also the people that I do attract are good eggs, as we say. They're people who are like-minded and they're cool with who I am.
Why do you think you're a bad boyfriend? Is it the sex addiction that comes back every now and then?
Even if it's not the addiction, because the addiction I can just enjoy with one person and have fun. It's probably just the amount of texting I've done in the past. I've dirty texted, I've been unfaithful, just been shitty and self-centered.
You sympathize with Anthony Weiner?
I do. I think, but Anthony Weiner's problem, Anthony Weiner, the interesting part was that he did not actually physically cheat, as far as we know. That thing, though, with the underage girl, I don't sympathize with. You're a dumb motherfucker if you're doing that. Like, I'm a pervert, and I don't do that. Don't talk to anybody under 18, stupid. And don't put your kid on the bed, even though you're not... don't use that in any kind of a weird... So there's certain things he did that I'm like, nah, he's fucking creepy. But I do sympathize...
Take that last one away, and he's just like a regular sexter.
Well, yeah, just the guy being a jerk texting, I don't have any problem with. Hey, that's your business. But if you got to put your kid on the bed, you're just a jackass. And an underage girl, if you're dirty texting with her, you're a fucking creep.
What did you think about, before that last incident happened, sort of removing that from the context, what did you think about the cultural outrage over that and him sort of not he was potentially going to win mayor over de Blasio at one point.
He might have been, yeah. And, look, people's sexual privacy, the fact that we shame each other over this stuff is why it's a big secret. And is anybody surprised when someone's a pervert? I mean, Trump did this, Bill Clinton did this, Weiner did this other conservative did that. But the pastor who just said that the Pulse nightclub people kind of deserved to be shot because they were gay or whatever.
He's arrested for child molestation.
Arrested for molesting or whatever the fuck it was. Like, they're all pieces of shit. So I don't judge other people sexually as long as you're not fucking with anybody underage and you're not forcing people to do anything or manipulating people. There should be no shame around any of it. And if there was no shame around any of it and we were allowing people just to kind of be fucking perverted when they want to be, we'd probably get better candidates because Anthony Weiner might have been a great candidate.
I'll say he was an incredible candidate, an incrediable campaigner. It's unfortunate what happened to him, but yeah, he was one of the. I talk about it with friends all the time, and we're like, why did Anthony Weiner have to blow it?
Yeah, I mean, but there was also shitty judgment. Yeah. There is something to be said for that too. Like when you get caught sending a picture of your dick, and it's not impressive, by the way. If you're gonna send a dick photo, hook up a mirror system, and then you do it again. That's psychotic. That's bad judgment, and that kind of exposed. He might not have been a great mayor because his judgment sucked. You know what I mean? Like when his wife is hot, and not that means anything because you're not doing it because of your partner's appearance. That's kind of a stupid thing to say.
Well, Huma is beautiful.
Yeah, but even if she wasn't beautiful, it doesn't matter. Being selfish or being highly driven has nothing to do with. I've cheated on pretty girls before. It just doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Let's get some questions from the audience right here.
Hey, Jim.
Hi.
So I remember you had a little cameo or a line in the first Spider-Man movie.
Yes.
And how did you get involved with that? And did you ever want to do acting or more acting?
I've done some acting. The original Spider-Man, I auditioned. I play a man on the street. I'm billed as surly truck driver, which my fans immediately pointed out was STD. They pointed that out immediately. And I just basically say to, they're doing man on this, what do you think of Spider-Man? What do you think of Spider-Man? And I improv'd a bunch of stuff, but I said he stinks and I don't like him. And I think that was the first negative thing anybody had improv'd about him, and they liked it and they kept it in the movie. But I had just gone on an audition and said negative stuff, and they gave me, I didn't get to meet Tobey Maguire. I didn't get to meet Sam Raimi. It was a second unit shoot in Queens. But I've gotten so many checks. I've probably made $5,000 or $6,000 from that one line over the years because it was so successful. It went into into Chinese or into foreign distribution, and an $80 check would come or a $3 check over the years. It's amazing how many checks I've gotten.
Do you still audition for parts and stuff like that?
Yeah. I'm in a show called Power. It's on the Stars. I play a priest in Power called Father Callahan, which is a big switch for me. But I got it because I think I didn't care. Because I'm like, there's no way they're going to cast me as a priest. So when you go in, I just kind of threw it away, delivering it casually, and they liked that interpretation of it. So I've gotten, I was in season 3, and I've a decent amount of seasons in season 4. So I love acting. And I've done Louis C.K.'s show a lot and Amy's show, and I was in a series called Lucky Louie on HBO. Which was a live audience series that Louis did in 2006.
That's where he had Pamela Adlon. Was
Pam Adlon,
right? That's
where he met Pam, yeah, and Rick Shapiro. Emma Stone actually did an episode of that. She played, Mike Haggerty and Laura Keitlinger played the neighbors. She played their crazy teenage daughter who offers Louis a blowjob. And Louis has to tell the parents, hey, your daughter is out of control. It was a really great episode. But
went straight to YouTube.
Yeah, she did. But that was the thing. She said, you want a blowjob? And he's like, whoa. And then he talked to her parents about how crazy their kid was. It was great.
Next question. Who's got a microphone right here?
Hey, Jim. Thanks for coming.
Sure.
I love the special. It was great.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So you've been on radio for many years.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, there's so many big characters and personalities you've probably had to deal with. What was maybe your favorite and your least favorite?
My favorite is, I'm an Ozzy Osbourne fan. I love him more than anything. So the fact I've gotten to know Ozzy is probably the greatest. But I've got to interview and meet so many. One of my greatest moments, I'm a big, The Wire I mentioned, was, and I could never get an interview with Michael K. Williams, who played Omar. We had done so many people, I could never get Michael in. And then the one day he was in, it was like 2008 or whatever, and the show was ending. And I was kind of fat. And we were interviewing him about it, and then somebody mentioned Lucky Louie. And Michael was like, I love that show, man. We used to watch that show every week. And then he didn't realize that I was next to him, that I was in the show. So him recognizing me going, oh shit, I love you, and hugging me, that's one of my greatest celebrity moments of just somebody like who I liked had enjoyed something I had done too. Paris Hilton I didn't enjoy. She was not revealing and boring and looking at the publicist a lot. If you're a performer, and I'm going to say this, if you're any performer and you have to look at your publicist during an interview, don't fucking work with the public. Just fucking stay home and do home movies. You know what I mean? If you need another person to answer for you, you're a shithead. I'm a grown-up. I answer for myself. Again, but she wasn't awful or evil. I just didn't enjoy her.
Do you have a publicist?
Yeah, sure, to get me stuff and to help hook this. They hooked this up. Yeah. But I would never allow my publicist to come with me into an interview space and go, hey, I had the publicist go, this is over. I would never allow a publicist to end an interview. I would end an interview if I wasn't comfortable. And Nancy Grace I didn't really enjoy, but it got a lot of hits for our show. So I would say those are the ones that come. But there's so many fun people I've met that were, Floyd Mayweather was a little tough to interview. He wore sunglasses. I typically don't enjoy people wearing sunglasses when I'm talking to him, and he had 6 giant guys come in with him. It's like, what am I gonna do, attack you, Floyd? It's just fucking, me and my other fucking out-of-shape co-host. But he wasn't awful, he was just kind of distant. Some athletes are a little distant, and I tend to not enjoy that.
Next question, I think this is the last one.
Hey, Jim, how's it going?
I'm good, sir.
I was just wondering, was there a moment in your life that you decided that you wanted to get into stand-up?
Yeah, it's, wow. It's like you're a funny kid. I always told jokes and made my dumb friends laugh, and that was what felt good. But in 1979 or 80, I saw Richard Pryor filmed live in concert. It was...
You saw it filmed? You were
No.
there?
That was in Long Beach, California, but I saw it on HBO with my mom and dad. And watching him, I think it's the best stand-up ever done. Watching him murder this audience, and I'm laughing at it. I was laughing at the same thing my parents were laughing at, and watching the audience move, this physical reaction, it was a weird thing to watch a guy fucking pound an audience like that, and you realize to make people move like that, it was a visceral thing. But that was when I put 2 and 2 together and went, that's what I want to do. That's what you do with being funny. I never knew where you took it. So I became kind of obsessed with him after that. And then Rodney Dangerfield and, Robert Klein and all those guys, Carlin, of course. But that was what made me want to do it, was watching Richard Pryor.
There's nothing like Richard Pryor. And have you ever watched any of the early stuff before?
Yes.
Still Smoking? There's this...
My favorite.
It's so amazing. He does a 20-minute character where he doesn't break. There's very few jokes. It's literally just a performance of a junkie on the street.
The Wino and the Junkie, yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing that and just being, it was thrilling that he was willing to do that in a comedy club. It was like a performance art piece.
And here's what was great about him. Live and Smoking was done in 1971 in the New York Improv, where he wanted to film himself, because he used to be real clean-cut and good-natured, and and then he walked off stage in Vegas, and he's like, I can't do this anymore. And he started going into black clubs like Red Fox's Club and working all this racial material, and that was when he became Richard Pryor. He abandoned that other shit. So he was new, though. He was still young, and there were white audiences, and he's on stage doing this stuff, and the crowd was not laughing. He's bombing. Live and Smoking, Richard Pryor is eating his dick on stage, and it's fucking great. And he's so open. At one moment, he's like, I sucked a dick. You can get a habit. And he talked about sucking a dick. And no one admitted that kind of stuff back then. And it didn't do well, and it wound up not coming out until 1980, after he was famous, or 81. They buried that special for years until he was a star, and then they released it. But it's my favorite thing he ever did, because to watch this guy, this brilliant fucking guy, just standing there smoking and bombing in front of this audience. And at one point, he's like, I'm nervous. He admits being nervous. He admits that this is not going well.
It's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. I remember coming across it in college and just it just totally blows your mind that this is out there and exists. The greatest comedian in the world bombing and sort of experiencing his act and taping it.
And you wish that I wish I had a better answer for who's your favorite comedian. Because, every comic, I'm 48.
He's the best.
He was the best. And it's unfortunate that there's not I'd love to be unique and give you a different answer. But it's that was the guy. And the reason people say it was the guy is just because, you know, we all kind of agree he was. Younger people don't appreciate him as much because socially relevant stuff doesn't hold up as much. Like, no one's ever gonna look at the Three Stooges and go, wow, it's not funny anymore to get slapped with a fucking wrench. Like, physical comedy always holds up better than socially relevant stuff, because socially relevant shit isn't relevant in 10 years, and plus other comedians do it and copy it, so younger people see younger comics doing it, and then Richard doesn't seem to be as poignant, because it's hard to go back and go, no, he was the first, he was...